Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Unbottleneck, the podcast where we solve common digital marketing problems. And today we have an incredible guest with us, Warren Whitlock, who is the author of Twitter Revolution, Profitable Social Media. He is an IBM futurist. He's an emerging technology, and he's the host of Distributed Conversations. Warren, welcome to the show, and thanks for being on with us today.
Hi, good to be with you. Excuse me. I'm kind of laughing here because I see you looking at notes to introduce me, and I go like, Steve, you know me. You're one of my best friends.
But you gave me these big words to use, and I'm a technical guy. I don't know what distributed conversations are. I'm an introvert. We don't have conversations.
We're having a distributed conversation right now, and it doesn't have to be about what the boss said it's supposed to be. It doesn't have to pass any government authority, and so the distributed world is the future. And I'm always excited to talk about what's working and what's getting better, and there's no place better to do it than with my my good friend Steve.
Well, I know that you go back years and years and years in the world of social media. You wrote a successful book on the topic of really how to grow your Twitter and how to use Twitter effectively for businesses. Social media has changed and evolved so much over the last few years. I mean, remember we were using MySpace back in the day, and all these crazy little sites that really don't even exist anymore.
Well, it goes back way before that. When I started, it was bulletin boards and CompuServe. I was on the internet in 1984, but it was a command line prompt, and I tried typing help and /help and whatever I had to do to get that to come up, and I read a document scrolling by at 1200 baud and decided, well, at 9 cents a minute, I'm not going to do anything else there. But I can say I was on in 1984. But then immediately after that, 85, 86, I started a company and started discussing what we were doing on forums on CompuServe. And I didn't set out to sell. There were people selling things, but the sales I made off of just people saying, where can I get this? And I said, send me a PM. And, and then that resulted in something coming in the mail and, working that way. I mean, we were even like taking a check, it's how we were selling things. But, it's like, what could we do to make it most profitable? I wanted the software to go as fast as possible. I wanted to get as much done as I could, cover many topics as I could, just jam it in. And then when I heard about the internet, I'm going like, yeah, I got to get on this. And because I was a marketing guy.
Sure.
And so I was always looking to do that, even though my company was in tech. We were doing hardware repair in Southern California back then. And and so, actually I hated fax machines because fax machines were going to hold up email. The stupid thing is, I said fax machines are going to set back email by 10 years. And 10 years later, I realized, well, that was dumb. I should have been investing in fax machines. So I missed that one. And I think there's a point to that, because by the time social media came along, I was so used to getting online and doing something, helping a forum or a Usenet or whatever grow by talking. We had email chains in one. It works so much better than any of the reply to email now. But imagine being in something like Reddit, but then picking exactly what topics you want and having it come to your email. This one was working great. Nothing like it today. And so by the time Twitter came along, I said, this is the future. Short messages. You can look at it like a party line, but you also can have individual conversations. And so that's why I wrote the book about Twitter. It wasn't how to grow your Twitter or how to market, but it was talking about the fact that it would be a revolution in how we market and do business and live. And so, I mean, we're still barely getting started on what we were talking about was going to happen. We said mobile marketing will be coming soon. I'm still saying mobile marketing's on the way, even though today in SEO, you work on mobile first.
Hmm.
E-commerce, we work on mobile first, but I got a site that does really well, and our mobile app just totally sucks.
Sure.
So we're going to fix that. But when we took it over, they had this mobile app that just didn't work because everybody had to have a mobile app. And now we're
I
starting to
can
see things that are just integrated into the way we live.
I can tell
So
you that businesses will come to us and ask the question of, there's all these different social networks out there, and as a business, we know we need to have a presence there. We know we need to see and listen to what our competitors are doing. We need to be in front of our audiences there, and I think the challenging part a lot of businesses have to get through is where do I start? What networks should I be on? Should I be using Facebook for my business, or should I put my energy on Instagram? We do
uh,
B2B. Should I be
yeah,
focusing my energies on
that's a that's
LinkedIn? And if I do, what kind of a roadmap should I be taking, and what checklist should I
yeah.
use to maximize my
Well,
visibility there?
you and I have talked about this many times
Yeah.
about your approach is to be the engineer, the SEO version of it. Where can we do this? Where can we get the best
Right.
ROI? And the simple answer to that, if you're looking for a quick ROI in social,
Hmm.
start buying advertising.
Yeah.
Start there, because if people can find, of course, you have to have a website, but have some place for them to go. But as soon as you do, you can get a lot of traffic. You go to Facebook and tell them, I've got $1 million to spend.
Hmm.
They'll take care of you. You will get a whole lot of traffic for $1 million.
Right.
Now, it's self service if you don't have the millions of dollars, but hey, they're doing it at that level. It works. It's not about proving whether one's going to be better than the other. But let's get practical to what any business can do. Anybody with a website, or for that matter, you can do this even if all you have is one Medium post and
Hmm.
you want to have people see it, or one LinkedIn profile. So
Sure.
it's very simple as long as it's a URL. And the answer is, instead of trying to push people to see what you want to sell them, is to go back to basic communications theory.
Mm.
It has not changed in my lifetime. In the 60s, the first class I took on what communication and how to communicate better was, the biggest thing about communication is listening. And
Right.
once you learn to spend 60, 70% of your effort in listening, the rest is a lot easier.
Kodak
Yeah.
had a chief listening officer, didn't they, back in the day?
Uh, well, no one called it that. I
Yeah, I
think.
think that's the
uh,
title he gave him. That's why it was
uh,
like this weird
well,
thing. Like,
yeah, but
what's
but
that?
that's fairly recent. But
Yeah.
I'm talking like back in the 60s and 70s, we
Okay.
didn't even talk about C-suite titles changing. That, I mean, chief marketing officer. There was definitely no chief information officer
Sure.
or chief technical officer. No, none of those worked. I think a CEO and CFO, I think, was about it. And then some other functions that were there. Vice presidents, I think, would be
Sure.
the next thing from there. And so, even back then, though, it was all about listening. And so let's
Hmm.
start there. If you want to be successful in social media, you've got to be better at listening than anybody. Now, there's an incredible amount of tools. There's some for free and some cheap, and there's some where you don't get started unless you've got $50,000. And
Sure.
all of them do the same thing. Where are the conversations going on? But
Hmm.
let's get practical and say what you and I could do today if we wanted to get into a new subject. And you and I have actually done this. Go
Hmm.
out, put the search term into Google, see
Hmm.
what's there, start talking about it. Go on Facebook, find out where the discussions on Reddit, on Quora, find out where the discussions are. You're one of the best examples I use of. At one point on Quora.com,
Hmm.
you went on and started answering questions about SEO,
Yeah.
and you were getting leads off of it. And meanwhile, I was looking at it and I'm going like, there's a lot more work than tweeting. But it's
So much
so
work that I stopped using it. I got
there
enough
you
business
go.
from it that I haven't had the
But
bandwidth to
when
do
when
those
you're
sorts of
saying,
things.
I don't have money, I want to get started, I don't want to like pay somebody to go and create a strategy for me.
Right.
Go with your own self. Get on there. When AdWords came out, we had a similar admonition. Every The best guy I followed at the time was Perry Marshall, was
Okay.
talking about how to do AdWords. He
Hmm.
still does, among many other things. We became friends much later, but I bought his book or course or whatever when it first came out, and he said he thought that every CEO should open up their own AdWords account, because the way to get knowing what's going on and have a feel for it is to spend $50 a month on AdWords. And it would be the best investment they could make, because they could go out and do things. Now today, I don't know. You might need a course to get to even spending $50. There's so many variations and things you can do. But
Yeah.
back in the day, that's the way I learned AdWords. I was buying PPC before AdWords came along, and
Sure.
so I just went out and started trying things. I remember how much fear there was that I'm going to bid and I'm going to pay 10 cents every time somebody clicks on this. And
Mm.
the next thing I knew, I was paying dollars per click, because I knew 1 out of 6 people that clicked would sign up, and one
Yeah.
out of 10 of those would make a sale, and I'd make hundreds of dollars.
Sure.
So there were somewhere, a dollar was cheap
So
for me
circling back
back
to
then, and
social media,
now it's the same thing. Well,
right?
social media is the same thing. You've got to get out there and listen, pay
Mhm.
attention to what's happening. So you could ask your customers. Let's go
Okay.
bricks and mortar. They come
Okay.
walking into your store and you say, "What social media do you hang out on?" And then
Sure.
go there, and then be useful, answer questions, make meaningful comments, think
Mhm.
about what you're doing. And again, on the very cheap, it's got to be you, not somebody you pay to do it. But
Right.
even if it's your CMO or your assistant to the whatever that you put in charge of this, it's some kid on TikTok, it's going to be the same thing. Now, do you trust the kid that knows TikTok, that is working in your warehouse, to suddenly become the expert at telling you what your TikTok strategy should be? No. But at some point in between all of that, you have to figure out a way to listen.
Sure.
And I'm sure you could provide somebody with the tools or reports on
Yeah.
where it's being discussed or whatever. Tracking software, all that can be put in. But
Sure.
ultimately, somebody's got to read that. Somebody intelligent enough, and more than the intelligent, experience enough to do that. So I'm back to the example of the old $50 on AdWords, or getting on there yourself, answering the questions on Quora. Until
Sure.
you do that yourself, you don't know what it is. So at whatever level that is, if you got 100 employees, I'm sure there's somebody on staff, but more senior than not, who can get on and do that. Learning the technology, it's no longer about the I can't get on Instagram because only the kids are using that.
Mm. You say
Everybody
that
can
about
figure out
TikTok,
how
right?
to participate. And
Uh-huh.
yeah, get the kid from the warehouse that's making TikTok fit, and listen to what he has to say. But just be careful about what his expertise is. Don't Maybe he doesn't do your messaging, but he can show you where the controls are. And don't be afraid. I spoke one time on this subject, and I did an hour. It was a fun time, because the I went prepared for a, presentation, and they didn't have the laptop plugged into the big projection system,
Mhm.
and so I got a laptop, and I went to plug my laptop in, and it only worked with Macs.
Yeah.
And nobody told me this before I attended. So I did this presentation, had a chat with them, very open conversation and everything. But sure enough, as the thing got over and people were coming up asking me questions, one guy waited and waited and waited, and then took me aside. He says, "Hey, I'm an attorney. I bill out at $500 to $1,000 an hour. I know I've got to understand this better, like you're talking about,
Mhm.
but frankly, I'm afraid to talk to these people." And I realized at the time I could have sold him, a consulting package of thousands of dollars. So
Sure.
me as a pro could talk to him as a pro. We were both, older people, and seniors, as we reluctantly are called now.
Yeah.
How can a baby boomer be a senior? Baby senior, I still refuse to grow up.
Sure.
And But anyway, but on that level of talking about it and helping him, because now I can go into the room and talk about it, or he can
Mm.
call me when he gets stuck. So you may need that, but that's up to you. If you're in a suit and trying to have the pretense that you know everything, well, call me. I won't tell anybody who you are and how dumb
Right.
you are. That's
I
okay, because
I
I
know it
don't
all
feel.
feels overwhelming to businesses, right? There's so many things that a business is supposed to be able to use to help market their businesses. I love that hey, let's start with some ads. I think our mutual friend Dennis Yu has this thing where it's like $1 a day, kind of
Hmm.
just play with it, just throw some
Oh yeah,
dollars at it and goof around with it. I'm scared, and I'm a digital marketer. I'm scared of TikTok. I see my daughter on there all day long. I
yeah.
see pretty much anybody who puts any time into TikTok gets thousands of views of it. So for me, it's like I've got this perfectionist mentality where if I can't do something that's organized, structured, scheduled, and perfectly done, I don't want to do it. You know, if it's not repeatable,
You
I don't
know,
want to do it.
you know what?
But then I see others that just go out and just be goofy and just
Yeah.
do it. Yeah.
Well, I had the same problem with video, and
Uh-huh.
it was 2012. By then, I probably owned a couple of dozen webcams, external, right?
Okay.
Webcam, plus all the laptops that were coming with webcam. And I had was very reluctant. It's always like, I've got a camera, but it's not hooked up right now because I'm working on the blah, blah, blah. It was in the box unopened, you know? And one day in 2012, I was doing a series of calls. I was selling things to people as a consultant, and
Okay.
I said, you know what? I've got to start doing this. And I was working at home like I do now, you know,
Yeah.
wearing a t-shirt. And of course, the wonderful thing about the color of my hair now is you can't tell that I didn't shave this morning. You know, so, and that's now a look. But back
Sure.
then, you know, it was like, oh, I'm never ready. I've got to do this and make sure, you know, and wait a minute, are my eyebrows growing out? Oh, wow. You know, I can't.
And I think we both have our pandemic shorts on today, so
Yeah, exactly. How'd you know? Did you tilt the camera down? You tech guys. Yeah, but yeah, the pandemic has helped us.
Yeah.
We're now doing Zoom calls all the time, and now I default. I won't have a meeting unless it's video.
Yeah.
You know, and by default, I turn it on all the time, and I have people say, "We're going to worry about bandwidth. Turn off your camera." Warren. That's fine. And I'll turn
Sure.
off my camera, but I'll take a phone call and I have some meaningful conversation. And you know, when I get talking to somebody like you, where we've talked so many times, hey, a phone call we can communicate. But again, I wouldn't think of not having it the video on when I
So,
talk
but
to you,
you just had to jump in and do
warts
it.
and
So
all. Yeah.
so these
Now
mom and
there's
pops that run little retail stores or florist shops are being told by their kids, Mom, you got to be on TikTok. What might be the right sort of best
well,
practice stuff
the
for
way to
getting
do it
started?
is to be honest. So you can always do frequently asked questions.
Okay.
So I like to use the example of what I was doing when I had a brick and mortar business and we had phone calls coming in, and I did everything I could. We didn't have any kind of automation.
Sure.
I did everything I could to avoid answering the phone because it would be questions about what our hours
Right.
are, or you know, general directions to the store. And FAQ was a brand new concept back then. We're talking like very early '90s. Usenet
Sure.
came up with FAQs, frequently asked questions. By the
Mm.
way, there could be somebody watching or listening that hasn't seen that. And yeah, so I wanted to do FAQs and I wanted to put on automations because I didn't want to talk to them. I taught everybody. One of the first things I taught them was, you're going to answer the phone, you need to know the 4 types of calls where somebody calls and asks for me. It
Yeah.
was a small business, and quite often they were looking for me, and or can I talk to the owner or whatever. You know,
Yep.
here's what you do with a vendor. Here's what you do with somebody with expression. Avoiding it. If I was able to do that today, I'd be in the lobby all the time talking to customers because you can learn so much.
It's true.
So let's apply that same thing. You want to learn, you got to talk to people, answer the FAQs, or what you think the FAQs are. Not about your special and why people ought to choose you over competitors. And there's
Mm.
room for all that, but get
How the
started
product
with being real.
works. Yeah.
Authentic beats everything. That's why your kids are telling you to be on TikTok,
Yeah.
because it's real. You know, it's yes, there's some editing and some cool things you can do with
That's the part
TikTok.
that scares you because I don't think I think I'm even though I'm somebody with a technical background and I've been in IT and I can
Yeah,
acclimate myself to software really well. I'm not really a
I,
graphic designer or
I
video
edit
editor, and I feel like a
I
lot of that
edited
requires
video
that
when it took a
experience.
crew of 10 people to make a
Uh-huh.
video edit. You had to wait for the reels to get up to speed of the
Oh
big
yeah, yeah, yeah.
2-inch tape, and
Yep.
then the control room was 50 feet away, or the actually the room where it was, that, what do they call that?
So
The
is
head
there
in for
third
the
party
TV stand.
software then that businesses should be using to do a better job
No,
with their TikToks? Or?
actually, I'll tell you what I do most often to make video. not counting meeting video, is I use Twitter. I click on the camera, turn it live, and I start talking. Now, that means I have 500,000 followers on Twitter. So that means between live and recorded, it's very simply going to be thousands of views. And so that could be scary doing it that way. Your advantage, if you don't have 500,000 followers, is you probably won't get very many people seeing it. And most of them will be recorded. So you could delete it, but, you don't want to make the mistake of having, cat ears on, a cat face, whatever that one was. The guy came to the Zoom meeting without it. Came and appeared before a judge that way. I mean, there is that sort of thing, but that's what kids are for. The ones that put that stuff on your computer and tell you how to turn it off. Make sure that's okay, and then go live. Anybody with a phone today can push a button and go live on YouTube, Facebook, whatever. And again, controlled audiences. If it's Facebook and you're only broadcasting to your family, I mean, you can actually set it to you only do it for yourself, even on YouTube. We have a chance not to share it with the public. So even though it's using the live technology. Do it a few times. And then don't worry about the fact that it's not right. I inherently, every time I do anything, I screw up. The minute you said, let's go live, I felt the need to cough. And I'm sitting here going like, where's my mute button? What can I do? So the
first, you're not in public when you cough, because how people.
The first sentence on this recording had me coughing.
Right. I'm looking at the ecosystem of social. I mean, obviously there's multiple platforms and places that we can be. There's probably 5, big places that I know businesses want to pay attention to. But then there's emerging platforms like Clubhouse that are coming out, and even TikTok still just a few years young.
To my point, why are you looking at those if you don't have a active Facebook group?
I suppose the mentality is, well, should I waste my time going on a platform that's going to be used less as people move to this new platform? Do I just play the game and keep bouncing to whatever the new?
Well, now, if you're a social media agency and you're, setting up things that have got to be approved by corporate, you got lawyers involved with what you're going to do, then some of that's got to be done. But at that point, you better be hiring somebody who understands this stuff. Somebody with your knowledge or mine or something like that. I'm not looking to advise people on where to get started in social media, but ask me on Twitter. I'm happy to answer the question. And I'm going to say, and by the way, I use Twitter all the time, but it's only a part of what I do socially.
Right.
I consider what we're doing here, guesting on podcast episodes, is an important thing. I have a podcast, but I put most of my effort into guesting on other people's podcasts and then promoting those links, because I got the SEO value of you're going to link back to me. I'm helping the world. I'm rising tides lifts all boats. I'm putting out the knowledge, and I know karma will bring it back to me.
Right.
And so you can do that as simply as finding blog posts and commenting on them. Kind of old now, maybe Medium instead of blog posts today on most things I'm working on. But it's the same thing. Find a group of people. Let's say you're a dry cleaner. Find a group of people that are asking questions about taking care of your wardrobe in any way, shape, or form. Preferably not, how do you get the stain out and where's my nearest dry cleaner? You don't need to do that. The big advantage to social is you can have a global audience, and it doesn't matter that most of them will never be customers. Because when your customer sees it, they see you helping somebody.
Yep.
So I give business advice, this kind of advice all the time. I advise companies in Ghana. I don't get paid. They ask me a question on Twitter and I answer it. Right. And and in fact, it was fashion. How can I get my stuff sold in the United States? And I'm going like, okay, there's probably a whole lot of steps in there you need, but first of all, you shouldn't be asking me. I know a lot of things, but fashion distribution wouldn't be my wheelhouse.
Right.
I'm
wearing a Bourbon Street hat, if that tells you anything about my fashion sense.
And you're covering what I have headphones on. Both of us are not here to show off our haircuts.
uh,
But yeah, uh, that's it. But the funny thing is, I start thinking about it. I'm going like, well, yeah, I do. Here in Vegas is the magic show every year. It's one of
mhm,
the best places to make it or break it in fashion. So
right.
figure out a way to get to a show like that. Start making those connections. You can do that. Well, you're in Ghana. You can't afford that. You're a kid.
Yeah.
And literally, that's what this person was, a kid to me, even if they were 25.
Sure.
But they're probably a teenager, and but I didn't care. It's a human being asking me the question. Well, everybody that follows me could see that, and I can use the example. This is probably the 10th time I've used the example. I didn't do it so I could use the example. I am that person. So when I tell my life stories, those are my life stories. Is helping other people, and it
Right.
becomes more and it becomes easier and easier, more and more easy, whatever.
But people
Well,
start gravitating to that though. They see some authenticity. You're not just saying
it is.
me, buy my stuff. You're saying,
Yeah.
hey, you're having a actually I can help you with that problem. Let me show you
Well,
how to do X, or let me
yeah.
help you with Y.
Imagine me trying to not be a geezer. When I'm on video, it just can't happen. I mean, I was never cool. So, and I can't be a cool grandpa now. I can just be a grandpa. It's what I can do. But I have the experience, and that gets better and better.
Yep.
And my stories get a little bit better over time. It's easier to focus on anything. I could bring up magic in the show and the fact that I live in Las Vegas, all from talking about fashion. Not
Sure.
necessarily relevant, but it's human relevant. And there's a theory of communications called ABX, and I don't even know if it's taught that way or it was in one textbook when I was in college, or
Mm,
that's where I learned it. And I had a mentor who carried on about it, and I liked his version of it, which
sure.
is, if I'm A and you're B, we can either be best of friends or hate each other. What matters is, can we find a way to a conversation where we can cooperate? And there's always an X. And boy, let's go up and let's go ahead and settle all politics and dichotomies in the world of saying it's because they don't find the X. You can also find Y where you disagree, which
Sure.
it means in politics they instantly do that.
So
It's popular in social media to do that. But if you instead find that X, like, you like hats, I don't like hats. Well, let's not talk about hats. Let's talk about T-shirts with silly slogans. Yeah, okay, sure, we both got that. Or let's talk about dog or kids. More. And if I really want to persuade you, I want to hear about your kids, not mine.
yep.
And what kind of car do you like? Oh, I like that kind of car too. Something like that. What's your favorite team? And let's face it, there's very few deals happen because of what sports team you like. But you can always define something like that, because there are, if you're a Cubs fan, there are other Cubs fans out there.
Sure.
And, if you're outside of Chicago or have any sense, you're not a Cubs fan.
So
Oh,
big.
I've just eliminated a small segment of your audience saying I'm not a Cubs fan. No,
Oh,
the
it's
truth
all
is,
good.
I'm not a fan of any sports team, but I can talk about that because I live in the real world. There
Sure.
was a C-level office for that, chief culture officer. I
Well,
totally
looking at the big
disagree.
picture though, Warren,
There should be
looking
one.
at the big picture, it sounds like for businesses really thinking about dabbling in social, start by just dabbling in it. Go into each one,
Yeah,
listen. It's every
listen,
single social site
listen.
has a search
Hey,
box.
if you
So,
go to
uh-huh,
Clubhouse and there's a lot of people talking about exactly what you want to talk about,
yeah,
whether that's the X that'll connect with people,
jump in
or
there,
is
raise
it,
your hand.
or they're asking questions about how to get a stain out, whatever it is, start that. But don't say, "Well, Clubhouse is so cool. I bet I could do a Clubhouse on how to get out stains." No, you don't need to do that, because there's probably a Facebook group talking about how to do that, or a Facebook group of your fellow dry cleaners talking about how they market online.
Well,
I
that's
mean,
where I
it's
have
that
to go,
specific.
Warren, because I have an Android and Clubhouse doesn't like Android users. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
it's
you're
just
not
the
missing
nature of it.
anything.
Now, one of the
Uh,
things I noticed too with successful social media campaigns, even for small businesses, isn't just kind of listening and responding and engaging, which does as over time chip away and sort of like the water and sunlight of your social media. Listen is the water and engage is is the sunlight. But I'm also noticing that really smart local businesses are trying to find ways to interact with these influencers, those folks that have larger audiences that are subject matter experts in their industry. Maybe if they're selling skateboards, they figure out a way to engage with some of the top skateboarders, right? To
sure,
get them to interact or so, whoa, that's a really cool video. Hey, check it out. This famous skateboarder liked our video or shared it, or
sure.
you see
Well, now we're talking
Michelle
about
Obama sharing other people's posts because she finds and relates to them, and that group, that
right.
charity, gets in front of thousands of
One
people.
one would yeah one would think that Michelle Obama isn't out hawking things that she was paid to sponsor, but the Kardashians are.
Sure.
But who knows what Michelle Obama is doing? I don't
So is that
follow
is
her.
that
I
a
wouldn't
technique
know.
then? Should businesses be looking at
Yes. So
influencers and
so here's
influencer marketing as a
the
way
traditional.
to maximize their social media?
Yeah. So back in the day, when I started marketing
Hmm.
on online and really pushing something, that was by the time internet started to be popular. I'd had
Yeah.
a fax, so I was doing some mailings with postcards. When fax came out, I started broadcasting. We were up to I think 10,000 a month of people who had given us their fax number. We didn't go out and buy a list or scan or import them or anything. No, we just ask people what their fax number was, and I'll send you stuff.
Yep.
So, it was supposed to be once a month. It was more like once every 2 or 3 months. I would send out, a couple of articles on one page, and then our business skyrocketed the day after that. But when the internet came along, being cheap and there being a lot of expenses to setting up and running that many fax cards,
Hmm.
I abandoned that investment. Uh, to say nothing of the phone
Right.
calls. And I abandoned that and went for let's put this up on my it was my first. I was in the laser printer business. I did laser news as a newsletter. I mailed that, and then I did laser fax, and then I called it laser page when I made it a web page. And I still own that domain. Now you can go there and it'll point to me or something else I'm involved with.
Mm.
Shut down the actual website, but we had
So this
tens
ties
of
into
thousands of people
influencer
coming to
marketing.
read that every month.
Yeah.
And what we did was we told people about things they wanted to know.
Okay.
And so that was pushing it out. Was I became the subject matter expert. I
Mhm.
wouldn't do it that way today. I find somebody that was already writing on the topic, already making videos, guaranteed whatever your expertise is, there's somebody out there making videos about it. They
Mm.
may be doing a poor job. They almost guaranteed are doing a bad job of their own marketing.
Right.
So it doesn't really matter whether they have 5 people or 500 people or 5 million people following them. Yes, you can get in the economics. If you have a big enough budget and a big enough staff, you can start, really searching and making the bigger deals. But if you want to get started with it, find somebody that's talking about, if you want to be associated with new companies changing the future, call me. Distributed Conversations available for sponsorship.
Yeah.
And do I have a large audience? Yeah, it's okay. I have my social media audience and
Sure.
network, but its own audience of people that tune in just to listen to that, not too big. But it's a tool. It becomes a piece of content we can do something else with. So
Yeah.
if I partner with, for instance, IBM, when I did work with them, IBM would pay me for it was weird. They didn't pay influencers, but there were little things they could do, and write this blog post or whatever,
Sure.
and attended a lot of events with them, and which they just expected I would tweet if they sent me to an event. And yeah, that was the old school way of doing it. I was telling them then, find the best content and do that. They were leaning towards that, but
Mhm.
now it's like there is somebody out there. There is somebody who loves talking about shopping at Target.
Right.
So you don't have to do it. Now, the normal corporate response was, let's find those people, and are they using the Disney logo without, talking about Disney characters without having the proper contracts in place? So we have to
Sure.
protect our copyright because nothing's more important to them than making sure Mickey Mouse doesn't become public domain.
I'm sure
And so
there's a DJ out there that could tell you all about that one.
there are. I mean, I know people that have been shut down for Disney pins. I call it a lapel pin, but I don't know, pins you put on your clothing. And at the time, this is years ago, he told me there were 92,000 varieties of them. There were websites dedicated to it. He put out a book. It instantly became a bestseller in the travel and collectors categories on Amazon. I mean, and he was making money every day. And he made so much money just buying every new pen that came out and then selling half of them that that not only paid for his family to go to Disneyland on a regular basis, but it also had income coming in.
I'm sure.
And of course, that always happens to the rich guy who has plenty of money to play with. So
you're just going about with social media and influencer marketing. I usually have like kind of a lightning round of questions. These ones are the ones that are top of mind for me. If I was somebody who was really interested in starting to dive into social media, where are some places that I would start looking at learning more? Would I use LinkedIn Learning, or are there some places that you feel businesses
for a course
go to start learning a little bit more about it? Is there?
Yeah, definitely.
Social Media Today or something, or I can't remember the
yeah,
website.
there's Social Media Today talks about it. That's become insider industry stuff. There's this Social Media World Conference, Social Media Marketing World, which is a fantastic way to really get into it. That's going to be your job to do that. But now now you send somebody and they learn that, they become your in-house specialist, or you hire an agency to do it if you have the means. But if you're talking about the small business, I run a dentist office and I want to get, more leads here. Well, the dentist doesn't go on and answer questions about dentistry.
Yeah.
But every dentist is member of a local chamber of commerce or service organization. You'll be doing the same thing. I remember, again, I was talking about those FAQs where I was reluctant. The same time I was in Rotary, and I was the only computer expert in Rotary. And the last thing I wanted to do was when I went to the service club for an hour a week to then network and whatnot, I didn't mind picking up a lead, but I didn't want to sit at lunch and describe how computers work, right? But they always were asking me stuff. And they were saying, no, I never need to use a computer in my job. It's the early 90s. And I said, yeah, if you want to be at first I said, if you're planning on still not retiring in the next 5 years, and then when the retired guys started asking me questions, I just said, if you're planning on being alive in the next 5 years, you got to learn how to use a computer. And today it would be, yes, you don't use a flip phone. Anybody who thinks they can get away with not knowing how to email today is, they're dead.
So we have some good resources then for learning. Aside from at Warren Whitlock on Twitter, what are some other social media folks out there that share a lot of really good, helpful advice for those people that are really thinking about jumping into social?
I like Dennis Yu's stuff. The Facebook on $1 a day thing. There are the hour a day series that were out. It's been a long time since I was even asked that question. But yeah, you can learn now. YouTube. There are basics of YouTube that, if I want to know something new, I go to YouTube and I find somebody.
Sure.
Like our friend that did, you recommended him to me when I had a question that you couldn't answer or you didn't want to answer. Who knows what it was that day? It's where I learned Google Tag Manager, the school.
Measure School. Yeah, we
Measure
use
School
all the time. They have a great YouTube channel. One of my favorites that I always lean on.
And I subscribe to it because I learn things from there. I know how to talk about economics and current events a lot better because I watch a lot of basics on that. Like how does the economy of Japan work? And as Economics Explained. You're going to find the same things. Now, I'm not currently subscribing or trying to learn this, and I don't teach it, so I don't need to keep up to date. But I would say, go to Wiideman.com, subscribe to anything or buy anything he's talking about, because the truth is that I've not found anybody better. But there are, I have a website called free-ebooks.net. And if you have no money and want to learn this, we have some books on there. I would tell you to be a little bit careful about how dated some of this stuff are. They're all offered for free, but I see comments all the time. People coming in and saying, "I learned about how I could start a
Sure.
business at home or how I could make some money." So if you're really poor, there's a resource all the way up to watch YouTube videos.
Well, Warren, are
Absolute
there
best.
are there any specific industry tools these days that you find the adoption rates on are
I
pretty high? I
use
know back in the day there was like Radiant 6 and there was Sprout
Yeah.
Social and
I
Hootsuite.
personally, I have my
Mhm.
large accounts, I do completely on the website,
Okay.
LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. I use the other tools. I use some tools for scheduling posts, but and now pretty much the platforms will allow you to schedule, especially if you're paying for it. And
Yes.
there are some other tools that do a better job of that, just because that's
Okay.
how they're focused. And so you'll see, some of my best tweets, quote cards, things like that, because I have a large enough audience and it's global that I have to worry about things like repeating the tweets.
Yeah.
Where I would teach you, if you're starting out, don't repeat tweets.
Sure.
Retweet and comment on tweets, share articles. But when you have an audience of a few 100,000, you got to
Mhm.
start worrying about, oh yeah, this quote worked, but it ran at 3 in the morning. Maybe I better run it again. So I
Yeah.
day part. I do all the stuff that I learned when I was a radio programmer.
Yeah.
And we'd never sell somebody one ad. We put a
Warren, what are some of your favorite social media channels and that you reference? Like when somebody asks me, "Can you show me a good social media campaign?" I always refer them to the Old Spice Guys internet responses campaign and the Aura Brush campaign that happened with
Yeah, I don't
the
know.
film
I
studio.
Most of the time people are asking me again for the very small, the how do I do it myself stuff.
Sure.
That's got to be authentic. That's got to be you.
Yeah.
And then there are some good ones like that. Those same ones. I mean, but today I think it's more memes. And so look at trending topics on. Okay, so on Twitter, on the right hand side of the page, twitter.com, not some tool, twitter.com, there's the trending topics, which has been taken over by big old media. And so you'll see LA Times and Washington Post, and people are paying to
Right.
have position there. They aren't the trending topic. So, and then there'll be a few things like Elon Musk and Saturday Night Live. It was a trending topic this past
Mhm.
weekend. Lots of people having comments to or
Yeah,
from,
it
and
was
all the
pretty cringy.
politics. But then, when you're in it's the explore button on the left.
Right.
It'll open up, or at the bottom of the trending topic it says more. Then you get into a longer list, and there's some topics, and then find the button that says trending across the top, that tab. That's the
Okay.
current in a case. Even in the Twitter Revolution book, we said, let's stay away from screenshots and saying how to do it, because that'll change next week.
Yeah.
It definitely has changed since 2008. But right now, it's trending topics at the top of the page. You click on that, and it's now words that are being used. Mine's set to global. You can send it to your country or your state or your community,
Sure.
and then you start looking at what are people talking about, and then you can. And the other thing is, my favorite tool is Twitter search. They've
Okay.
hidden it and made it harder, but there is an advanced search, and it's basically, other than Google and the search engines in general, no one does it quite like Twitter. They
Right.
you know they Early on, somebody wrote a specialized search engine for their stream, so we call it the fire hose of all
Mhm.
tweets, and which now you have to pay a big licensing fee to use. But
Okay.
Twitter bought the best company doing that for Twitter search, and so it does have all the Boolean logic and things you'd expect, and it takes a little playing with it. But I'll tell you, the simplest one is Cincinnati space sushi space question mark. And that's unique about Twitter, is that the question mark by itself becomes, give me only tweets with the question mark.
Hmm.
And so if Cincinnati space sushi space question mark will get you people asking questions about sushi in Cincinnati, and you
Nice.
will find some. I
And
made
that's where
that
the
up on the
conversations
spur of the
happen.
moment. I have sometimes found pages of tweets, other times not too many. Some of the algorithms about what they display have changed over time. It's not always the latest using those words, but it's still pretty good. and you can still find something. At least the last time I tried it. I don't try that often because I've been to Cincinnati once, and it's a nice place, but no reason to go back. And the other thing is I completely can't stand even the thought of eating sushi. But I use that because I could have a discussion about Cincinnati and sushi. Now,
Sure.
if it's dry cleaners in Milwaukee, you could do that, and find out what's the best restaurant. You think of what the questions are. And by the way, those make good tweets. Is you asking a question, people will respond. But better, find the questions that are being asked and answer them. And what's so good about Twitter is it's right now,
Yeah.
because tweets in the last hour are going to be on there rather than having to go and look at how often is
Some
this
guy
pouring
responded to a
from.
question I had in 2014. What is going on? Yeah. So, Warren, this has been amazing. I really appreciate all the amazing tips and advice for some of these businesses that feel overwhelmed by social. I see so many other topics we can talk about in future podcasts as well.
Oh,
But for
happy
those
to do
people
it.
who like to reach out and maybe even hire you to help them kind of build a strategy for their digital marketing or even just their
Right.
business, what's the best way
Well,
for them to reach you?
number one is, search for me. I'm Warren Whitlock on Google. Any place I'm doing something, please comment, respond. Let's have a conversation. Most of what I do as I'm sitting looking at Twitter, which can be anywhere from a half hour to several hours a day, because it's also my avocation. While I'm watching TV, I'll think of something and I'll tweet it, whatever. And sometimes I'll put something up. Lately, I've just been putting interesting comments, thoughts that come to my head. I wouldn't have thought that way, and put that out in a tweet, and who knows what conversation.
That's
We're
awesome.
having a quite existential conversation right now on consciousness and whether AI will ever be able to be conscious. And I can make a pretty strong argument why no. What we're thinking of the robots coming to gaining self-awareness and turning against us is just so far off in the future.
Yeah.
As our grandkids may have to deal with it, but nobody's even able to conceive of a path of research to get there. We're
Yep.
still working on, can we get an AI to access information that's on
I
on the
think
web
that'd
and then
be
answer it.
a great topic for another podcast too, for
Yeah,
sure. That'd be
exactly.
amazing.
And so, well, and I just posted before we started this recording about, is there a sci-fi where the robots become self-aware and don't turn on us?
That's
Because
true.
it's
They're
not a
all
very
there.
interesting story if the robots say, well, yes, and now that I'm aware, there's maybe data on the next generation Star Trek.
Yep.
That he wanted to be self-aware. He didn't want to use it to turn on the humans. But
This has
it's a
been great, Warren. Thank you again
fascinating
so much.
conversation sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. And guys, thank you so much for listening. Hopefully you're taking notes. There's so much to go through here with some of the tips and search queries. And
Yeah,
Warren, thank you again for being a guest. And I definitely look forward to our next episode.
let's do it.
All right. So you want to do one of those
Oh, the
little
pronouns, yeah.
blurbs for me?
Well, now I can stay with gusto, right? Okay. 3, 2, 1. I was just on the unstoppable
Stop.
456.
Unbottleneck.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. I'm looking at it. I can read it on my screen, but I don't have my reading glasses on. I was just on the Unbottleneck. Let me try again. Make sure there's a space. I was just on the Unbottleneck podcast with my good friend Steve Wiideman. Man, what a smart guy. Always great to talk to him. And he got me talking about some of the better things I know about and some fun stories. If you have the means, find Wiideman.com, find the Unbottleneck podcast, and subscribe, like, share. And this is something you should be a big fan of if you care about digital marketing. Too
Perfect.
long?
That was great. You are
Okay.
the man. Let me get to
Uh,
this internal employee call, and I will see you on email, man.
yeah, yeah. Talk to you soon.
All right.